The streaming era is dying and desperately trying to bring back cable, and it looks like in this chaos, YouTube is aiming to take over traditional media, and it actually seems to be working. And this is all coming as streaming services across the board are coming together to try and reinvent and honestly just flat out bring back cable TV. We're starting to do a full 180 here, and I think it's getting just a little bit confusing. And in addition to this, YouTube's CEO has announced that he's looking to get YouTube and its creators officially recognized and acknowledged in the same award shows as some of your favorite celebrities. With standouts like Chicken Shop Date, Good Mythical Morning, Hot Ones, and Michelle Carre's Challenge Accepted, possibly being eligible for the Emmys. And I know that sounds like a lot, because it is. I feel like a lot is changing around us, namely the entertainment industry, the online creator industry, and me. And we're going to talk about all that in this video, so sit back, grab a snack, and enjoy. I have a mic now, which makes me a man with a mic, which can be very scary, but I promise to wield it with couth and responsibility. This is the start of a brand new era, my friends. So if you are new to the channel, then definitely subscribe, leave a like on this video because it helps out a ton with the YouTube algorithm. Follow me on my socials at Imurgency on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And consider hitting the join button today to become a channel member, where you can get 2 channel member exclusive videos a month, as well as early access to every single one of these videos, starting as low as $2 a month. But with all that out the way, let's talk about what's going on with these streaming services. Now, it is no secret that streaming nowadays sucks. And it honestly used to be such a better experience, but I feel like it's been so long since we've had that peak golden age of streaming that a lot of us kind of forget what we've given up over time. So I kind of want to start off this conversation and this section of this video by going back down memory lane and really remembering what we've given up and how good we used to have it back when streaming first hopped on the market. So picture this, it's like 2010 or 2012 or something. When actually was it? When did Netflix come out? 2007. Okay. I didn't know that. Well, in this case, picture it's 2007, which may be hard for some of us because I was fully 7. But in order to consume media, TV, and movies at that time, you either had to wait to catch it in theaters or watch it on TV at a specific time when it would air. And with this experience, there would be ads, there would be commercials. You'd have to pay each time you wanted to go see a movie in theaters. And for TV, you'd have to pay for cable, which at that time was more expensive and just generally filled with stuff that you may or may not care about. Like, who was actively watching over 200 channels at a time? Let's be real, maybe bigger is not always better. And funnily enough, we're actually gonna come back around to that. But essentially, you had to watch things on a corporation's schedule. Basically, whenever they said something was coming on, you would watch it then and would have little to no other choice other than DVR, which, might I say, I don't know if I'm just digitally or is it even digital at that point? Regardless, I don't know if I just had the issue or if this is like a Gen Z thing. I could not for the life of me, 7-year-old me, did not understand how the hell to use DVR. It took me a while to understand what DVR meant and what DVR stood for. To this day, I'm not exactly sure what DVR stands for. I think digital something replay, recording, video recording, digital video recording, digital video recorder, period. But I had no idea how to use that. Oh, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know if it was a button on the remote. I don't know if it was a setting on like the actual TV. I would never know how to use DVR. So for me personally, whenever a show would go off of air and I would miss that show, that is television that I would just lose. I would have never seen it. That is just something that I would personally never see again, out of my control. And I hated that era. I really did. And I feel like many people hated that era too. Maybe not for the exact same reasons, but overall, prior to streaming, things were inconvenient, let's say. There was essentially no such thing as binge watching, unless a specific channel that you were watching was running like a marathon or something, or if you had the entire collection of the show on DVD, but again, that's not new content. Then enters streaming services. This was a new land, a new era, where you got instant access to the shows that you wanted to watch, when you wanted to watch them, wherever you wanted to watch them. And these shows were hits, or at least most of them were hits. And they would drop, and I cannot stress this enough, all at once. And thus, the binge watch was born, or at least popularized.
Binge watch.
Right. And one of the main value adds to streaming services of this time, something that we take for granted nowadays, is that there were no ads to be seen. It was an uninterrupted viewing experience. There were no in-between ad breaks. There was no ad-supported plan. There was a single plan that you would buy, and you were able to watch all of those shows uninterrupted with no ads, no breaks. And certainly, no commercials, which at that time was a lot more affordable than whatever cable was charging for their plans. I'm looking right now, and allegedly when Netflix started its streaming service, the subscription fee was $7.99 per month, and that got you everything. Nowadays, the lowest price for a Netflix subscription has gone down $1, and it is now currently $6.99. But that's the standard with ads. The regular standard price for Netflix right now, without ads, is $15.49. And then a tier above that, if you want like 4K and a really HD quality viewing experience, you pay $22.99 a month for a single streaming service. And this is essentially the layout for most, if not all, streaming services right now. Which leads me to my next point, in that streaming as of now has kind of lost the plot, and also its customers. Things like price increases over the years, popular and sometimes random show cancellations. I'm looking at you, the society. Region lock content where you need to buy a VPN to get access to content that in theory should be available to you, especially when that content is popular and was made in your country. Why do you not have it in your country? To things like password sharing restrictions and the ever so hated ads. We've progressively strayed further and further from what made streaming appealing in the first place. And I'm not going to be dense and ignorant to the reasons behind why these changes were made, as most of these decisions were made with profits and money in mind, because sure, you may not be making as much money if you have 5 or 6 people or potential customers sharing a single Netflix account where only one person is paying that $15.49 a month, when you could potentially have 6 individual customers paying that $15.49. But I feel like that's failing to forget that people are doing that for a reason. If everyone could and was willing to put down that $15.49, maybe they just might do that themselves, because it wasn't fun when 3 people were watching Netflix at the same time and that 4th and 5th person couldn't watch because 3 devices were already being used. Sure, it's more convenient to have your own account and your own profile, but that's money. Times are hard. And with all these things that have been deterring people from streaming, and most of these changes are recent changes, which brings us to our current state of streaming. I know I've mentioned almost exclusively Netflix in this video so far, but this issue does not solely lie with that one platform. All of these critiques and all the things that are wrong with streaming can be used and applied to literally any and every streamer that's out there right now, because they're essentially all doing the same thing. And that's a whole other thing. There have been an abundance of streamers. According to Forbes, the average American is paying for 3 streaming services at a time each month, some having fewer and some having much more. There's a streaming service for almost every single platform. There's Netflix, there's Hulu, there's Disney Plus, there's Prime Video, there's HBO Max, Peacock, Paramount Plus, AMC, Apple TV, Tubi. Yes, Tubi. Although I will give my shouts out to Tubi for being free, but we got Tubi? Among many other streaming services. And having so many streamers is kind of counterintuitive, but at first it was kind of manageable. Honestly, in the days when there weren't as many streaming services, a lot of these shows that are now on exclusive platforms would be shared amongst other streamers. But then when people started to realize how profitable and how consumer behavior was changing with the rise of the more OG streamers, different networks and companies started pulling their stuff from the OG streamers and making their own product, and then charging people for that product. So now we're at a point where everyone has a streaming service and their prices are all consecutively going up together, and it's getting incredibly expensive to have a regular viewing experience, which is causing a high attrition of customers. Like, I don't know what everyone was thinking, charging so much for a streaming service and then expecting everyone to purchase every single one of them. Like, no, especially with the practices that have been going on with these platforms, a lot of people cancel their subscriptions all the time, which inevitably has sort of brought about the downfall of streaming, and strangely enough, the resurgence of cable. Well, maybe not cable in the traditional sense, but as of like last week or a couple of weeks ago, the girlies, and the girlies being the streaming services, are bundling together. So it's recently come out that Comcast, a traditional cable provider, is offering a streaming service bundle with their service, bundling together Peacock, Netflix, and Apple TV at a alleged reduced rate. As of recording this, that rate has not been disclosed to the public, but this is all in an effort to try and reduce cancellation rates and to provide a, quote, more efficient means of subscriber acquisition, coming as the traditional cable TV business continues to deteriorate. So yeah, if traditional cable TV is deteriorating and streaming also seems to be deteriorating, the thought was to put them all together to see if they wouldn't deteriorate together. I think we're missing the point here. I'm just really interested to see what the pricing would be for the combination of all these, and whether or not these are ad-supported plans that are being bundled together, or if these are ad-free plans. Because if they're being bundled with cable TV, as we've previously discussed, being a service that already has commercials, will they then provide these streaming services that don't have commercials, or will they all be the plans with the commercials combined together? Because then it comes down to, like, is it really worth it at that point? Because sure, you get access to all these platforms which have a wide bank of content, but it brings us back to the issue that we were having with cable beforehand, where like, yeah, you have like all these channels, you have all this access to content, but who's going to be watching all of that if you're not interested in all of that, but you're still paying for it? Mind you, if this is a ad supported system at a lower quality, when you could just have one or two and get the higher quality plan for that same price, or just go back to cable. I don't know if you want to do that one, but that's also a reality, because I was looking it up because I haven't paid for cable in my adulthood, because when I became an adult, cable was kind of dead already. Cable right now in Los Angeles, California, the cheapest internet provider that I'm seeing right now off the top search of Google is Spectrum, and that's at $59.99 a month, and that comes with 125 channels. That's about 2 streaming services on the highest plan. So like getting that 4K quality, which you'd probably already get with cable, depending on the TV that you have, but like without ads, which is honestly wild to me. Oh, and then I forgot the best part. You know how I was talking about that streaming bundle that they were offering with Peacock, Netflix, Apple TV, all that with Comcast? Funnily enough, it seems that they're trying to incentivize people to partake in this bundle by essentially price gouging the girlies that stay. Allegedly, they're hiking up the price of the standalone version of Peacock before this switch, and coincidentally before the Olympic Games, which is going to be on Peacock. So yeah, the girlies that don't want the bundle are gonna have to start paying more for their service. Wild. These practices, don't agree with them. And with this said, where has this all left the industry? Well, now we're in a world where cable is essentially coming back. We've made a full circle where streaming services are coming back together to try and give us bundle deals, or essentially cable package deals. All the while, people are still unhappy with the residual splits of this content from even post the SAG and writer strikes, because there's no clear definition of how these properties are going to be used once they are in bundles. Because mind you, from the entertainment lens, streaming residuals alone have not been great. And that's part of the reason why the entertainment industry went on a whole strike last year, to get those residual rates raised. As far as I know, they're still not comparable to what the residuals were for cable. And follow me here, if they're trying to bundle together these streaming services to essentially bring back cable, that means that we now have a new cable where actors and talent get paid less than what they did for the OG cable, which can make this seem like this was all a roundabout way to pay people less for the same stuff. I am not the one to say that. That is simply what I have heard on the internet, and I will let that information be processed and understood in whatever way you may see fit. But with all of this said, we now transition to the second part of this video. We've talked a lot about streaming services merging together and how the definition of what a streaming service is versus cable has sort of been renegotiated and transformed over the years. Let's now look at what has been historically considered as like a social media / streaming platform has been slowly but not so quietly rebranding itself into becoming a streaming service in and of itself and looking to be recognized as such. And this service / platform that I'm talking about, you should be really familiar with. You are watching this video on said platform, and that platform is YouTube. Now, with all these streaming services kind of going through it and trying to figure out their own identity and their own vibe, are we going to be a standalone service, or are we going to bundle and become cable again? You have YouTube over here being like, hey, we're kind of next up over here. Can you start seeing us as like a real competitor? And honestly, this half of the video was inspired by a lot of headlines that I've been seeing crop up online, in addition to the words of YouTube's CEO, Neil Mohan, about the direction that the platform is going and the direction that they are looking to move the platform. And it seems like YouTube's planning the process of how they're going to launch their largest creators to the level of recognition that a lot of showrunners and creators of shows that live on these traditional streaming services are also on, to then go on and compete for those same awards. YouTube CEO has been very vocal about how he feels that some of the platform's top creators deserve to have their work and content recognized by organizations and awards like the Emmys, which as a longtime social media viewer may sound insane, especially with the backlash that a lot of creators have been receiving for attending events that they seemingly have no business being at, such as the Oscars, the Grammys, and the Met Gala. Places traditionally seen to be the home of celebrity and people in the entertainment industry, but I think that something about this is a little different. According to The Hollywood Reporter, YouTube is marking 1 year as the most watched streaming platform on Nielsen's Gauge chart, which tracks what consumers are watching on TV, and the platform says that in the US alone, 150 million people are watching on TV sets each month, totaling 1 billion hours daily. And that's honestly huge. I want to get into this more when I talk about what all of this means for the future of creators and of you all as a viewer. But as a little teaser, we're starting to see real world data that backs up the fact that the bridge between creator and traditional celebrity or showrunner is starting to inch closer and closer. But speaking to YouTube's presence on television sets, I think that this is really interesting, and I want to ask, like, are you currently watching this video on TV right now? And or if not, do you typically watch YouTube on TV? Because I personally am someone that usually only watches YouTube on laptops and phones, but seeing the statistic is wild, but also doesn't shock me when I think about the kind of content that's being produced on YouTube nowadays. Like, of course there are YouTube shorts, and shorts are a huge portion of the platform. It's been what the company's been putting a ton of focus on. Like, as a creator myself, I've seen firsthand how much effort and energy YouTube has put into shorts. Like, the sheer amount of programming, funding, and events that YouTube and the YouTube Shorts team puts on, it really does show that YouTube's trying to be competitive in the short form game. But when it comes to long form content, I feel like we've been seeing a shift towards more high quality and also longer content. We've seen a recent rise in video podcasts on YouTube's platform, and those all are around an hour long, if not more. Very produced pieces of content, very engaging, and typically something that you'd want to sit down and watch for a long time, something that you would want to put on TV. You also have a lot of the largest creators on this platform creating very high quality content that is very similar to that of traditional television. You have creators like Mr. Beast making these larger than life challenge videos. You have amazing creators like Michelle Khare literally having full productions, making television quality challenge accepted videos. And saying they're just videos feels kind of reductive, like they're full on episodes. Creators like Michelle Grace, Amelia de Moldenberg, and Sean Evans, who all in their own different way are essentially celebrity hosts to their own shows that started on YouTube, bringing on often A-list celebrities as a part of the celebrities rollout for whatever project they're working on at the time. Things that used to specifically be relegated towards traditional talk show on TV. The Fallons, the Colberts, the Kimmels of it all, if you will. And I feel like the strikes last year definitely contributed to this. Like, of course, these three creators were doing great prior to the strike, but I feel like the strike really did show the industry that, like, when this stuff goes down, creators are still going to be there to help with the press rollouts of things. And this is all to say that with all of this high quality content, there very much is a real possibility that these creators can be the next frontier of entertainment, because a lot goes into these productions and these videos that these creators make, almost if not matching the amount that goes into the production of traditional media shows. From the cadence of posting for some creators to the teams that go behind these productions. In a quote from The Hollywood Reporter, creators from the channel and show Good Mythical Morning spoke to The Hollywood Reporter, stating that they started building out a team that after 12 years really started to look more like a TV broadcast team, with about 100 people working on everything that they make, and around 40 people in the room with them while they're filming, doing their own respective jobs. And that's wild to think about the scale from that, going from just making videos in your room, kind of similar to what I'm doing here, to having a full production, having hundreds of employees to keep a full production running. And based on all this, it has recently come into question whether or not YouTubers and their production teams should be acknowledged and considered for the same awards as traditional media. Neil Mohan, the CEO of YouTube, wrote a column stating that creators are the new Hollywood. They're taking over television screens and finding big audiences. This puts the entertainment industry at a crossroads. If creators are not acknowledged by the Emmys, then we should ask ourselves if the awards represent the future of TV or just its past. And honestly, that's a heavy statement to make. And even more gaggingly, in the process of scripting and making this video, it's recently come out that Hot Ones, Chicken Shop Date, and Good Mythical Morning have all successfully petitioned to be included in the Emmys, with Hot Ones being eligible to be in the Outstanding Talk Series category, competing with the likes of Jimmy Kimmel, Seth Meyers, and Colbert. Good Mythical Morning being in the Outstanding Short Form Comedy, Drama, or Variety Series category, competing with things like Carpool Karaoke, and Chicken Shop also being in short form, I believe, which is honestly huge. Like, this is huge. Now let's bring this back to what this all means. Like I was hinting at before, the world of celebrity / traditional media and content creators have been blending over the years, with creators and influencers alike in recent years being seen as sort of uninvited guests. Like I mentioned before, the whole conversation of whether influencers deserve to be at places like the Grammys, the Oscars, and the Met Gala have been ran through the mud. And as a creator, I'm personally of the belief that not every influencer needs to be at every single event like this. As of right now, I'm more so of the belief that, like, if it fits with the content that you make and what you're striving for and what you believe in, then yeah, go. Like, for example, if you're a fashion influencer that's doing very well for yourself, it makes sense that you'd be at the Met Gala. Like, look at Wisdom. I made a whole video talking about Met Gala looks, and out of the men that were dressed at the Met Gala, Wisdom was one of, if not the best dressed man at the Met Gala. And that just makes sense because that fits the vibe. He doesn't feel like a guest of the space. He feels like he belongs and deserves to be in that space. And it should be like that across across the board. And bringing it full circle, now we're seeing things progress in that way, where especially with the stuff with the Emmys, we're able to see a world where creators are showing up to these events as contenders in the same award shows, in the same events, in the same spaces as these celebrities, as these execs, as these showrunners, which I personally think can be very inspiring and frankly can be seen as a great pipeline or a great path to traditional success for aspiring creators who may yearn for and have dreams of making or having their own show or being an award-winning host of a show and receiving that traditional recognition, which can actually change lives and careers without needing or having that background or exclusive access to resources that would normally be required to go the traditional media route for that same award show consideration. Like seeing the creators that I previously mentioned, along with other people that started off as creators and became more traditionally successful, like the Quinta Brunsons, the Issa Raes, the Emma Chamberlains of it all. It just seems that right now, high quality and highly successful and relevant longer form content is really being highlighted and spoken about for this consideration season. And it seems like YouTube may push more for this later, with an article from Variety stating that while YouTube hasn't made any formal submissions for the Emmys for its creators, this could soon change. Including these popular web programs indicates a growing desire for the recognition by the TV Academy, meaning that this could just be the beginning. And bringing it back to the greater conversation about streaming services, this could really make YouTube a solid contender in the way that the platform is viewed, going from a streaming service / social media app into really being a part of the streaming landscape, which can be a really great thing for creators. But I also want to hold space to also critique the platform, because as we just talked about the downfall of the past streaming services, it's a very slippery slope, and we're already starting to see the same things that went down and made the other streaming services not as great also sort of happen with this platform, with the increase in ads and locking out a lot of the highest quality options for video replay behind a paywall of like YouTube Premium. So of course there's a little bit of give and take there. And I also think, since we're in the nature of accountability, I think it's important when we talk about creators that we're highlighting for these amazing opportunities and to essentially receive their flowers, that we make sure that we're looking at these creators holistically and also from a point of diversity. Like, while all the creators that have been nominated for the Emmys are completely deserving and put in a tremendous amount of effort for the content that they make, I also did notice that there is a pretty prominent name that wasn't mentioned or brought up for Emmy consideration, and that is Terrell Grice with The Terrell Show. Also an amazing host, like I've mentioned previous in this video, done amazing work, has insane production value, has been doing it for a while, brings on a lot of celebrities, specifically super relevant to the Black community and wider community as a whole, but is definitely a pillar for a lot of the Black community. So I personally and selfishly would like to see him get his flowers and his recognition for having years of hard work and cultivating this high quality talk show on YouTube. But yeah, when it comes down to it, the entertainment industry is definitely in a period of a lot of change. Will these streaming services be able to adapt and evolve, or will we revisit the past with essentially cable plus? And are we going to see a full YouTuber to Emmy award winning showrunner pipeline in the near future? I don't know. I would like to hear all of your thoughts down in the comments below. Personally, that one I'd kind of like to see, but I'd like to hear from you now. I'm turning the mic over to you, babes. Let me know your thoughts on what you think about the state of streaming, as well as what you think about these developments with YouTube and YouTubers down in the comments below. If you've made it to the end of this video, thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you think about this new format, this new mic, and pretty much anything down in the comments below. Again, if you're new to the channel, then definitely subscribe. Leave a like on this video. Follow me on my socials at Imurgency on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter for pretty much daily content. But other than that, y'all, I've been Imurgency, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.